everybody. I am Sapna Mahadevan, and we are back again with another genre, another fresh story writing idea for all of my budding creative writers, I should say, rather, isn't it? So, yes, let's embark on this journey today as well and understand a newer genre in story writing and all of the tips and tricks, the various ideas that we can gather from today's episode. And look at how we can be producing another interesting story for our audiences. Yes, and today again we have this fiction story writing masterclass for all of my wonderful viewers for today. And as always, I would want all of you to unleash the writer in you, have a lot of imagination today as well, because stories and the world of stories are always about imagination and about creativity. Yes, I would really look forward to all of your presence here. Do stay tuned in with me in today's episode as well. We have a lot of fun sessions curated specially for our viewers. And yes, let's get started with the episode for today: Fiction Story Writing Masterclass, Unleash the Writer in You. Yes, and here we have the coming up segments specially curated for all of our viewers. There are a plethora of activities that we have planned in today's episode as well. So, let me showcase all of those activities here. There are going to be essentials, some prerequisite elements for writing the genre that we are going to explore for today. Of course, there are also fun segments like the guess the movie. There is a word segment as well. Then there are Google It segments, which have words and phrases or perhaps idioms that we teach you so that you can amplify your vocabulary. And apart from that, there is a recommendation of the day, which is a movie for the day. There are icebreaker questions that you can see coming up onto the screen here. So just a request here, please do be a participative audience and write out your answers to me in the chat box. The chat box is open and welcome for all of your comments. You can share your thoughts as well with me. Any questions that you feel you have about the story writing process, definitely point them out in the chat box there, and I would be more than glad to take that up. Yes. Great. A lot of hello messages coming up there in the chat box. A wave of hi to each one of you and a warm welcome to PSTV Live. So let's get started with the first icebreaker question for today. And here it is. If you could be a millionaire, then what would you do? That's the first question that we have here. So, yes, think of having a lot of money. And then what is that first thing that comes to your mind? How are you going to splurge all of the money, right? Uh, Dafia, hey there. Great to have you in today's live. I'm doing really great. Thanks a lot for asking. Uh, Enzo, yes. Okay, and answers to this question here, I can see travel the world. Okay, that is really something that comes to all of our minds, isn't it? Be a millionaire and travel all around the world, all across the globe. Buy a yacht. Okay, that's interesting. Um, Great. And what else? I think I'm going to go on a holiday, a long holiday to some far off place and just take off and relax, right? Splurge all the money in all the good things that life has to offer. Eat a lot of scrumptious food. Yes. So many things that we can be doing, isn't it? Great. There are smileys come up there, and travel the world is another option. Wow, I'm loving this one. Rajbala Singh, thanks a lot for that like there. And buy a lot of dresses, okay? So, yes, redo your wardrobe, isn't it? Lovely. Um, all the things that we can be thinking of, isn't it? Great. So, yes, that's again these icebreaker questions. Let me tell you, that's again making us think a lot. And we are getting some amusing answers here in the chat box. The limit that our imagination can have, isn't it? Great. So that was the first question in our icebreaker segment, and really wonderful to know all of the answers that I get here in the chat box. Buy a lot of books is another comment there, and that is really heartwarming. Um, Lovely. Thanks for that, Enzo. And let's move ahead into our next segment and understand in greater detail what is the genre for the day. Yes, that's the golden question, something that we're always looking forward to. And for today, let me tell you, it is all about drama and oodles of drama there is going to be in today's episode as well, while we understand how we can be incorporating all the elements of drama into the story, right? So the genre that we have for today is when I tell you all that it is going to be about drama, then it is a category of narrative fiction which is intended to be more serious than humorous in tone. Yes, so dramas usually are serious in tone. They have this kind of additional terms that specify the particular super genre. It's also micro genre that we can be talking about inside, or in as a subcategory for a period drama. Yes, so that's what it is for today, the narrative fiction for a drama category or a genre which is full of drama. Is going to be having a serious tone, and we'll also have to look into it with intricate details, um, and try and build up to the plot, right? So how are we going to do that is something that we are going to learn while we advance with today's episode here. But for now, the genre that we are having under consideration is drama as the broader genre, and as the subcategory inside or in the main bracket of drama, we have the period drama, right? So now, when we talk about period drama, it is always some kind of a historical drama, which is also called a period piece. And this is a work which focuses on a timeline which is of the past. Now, a period place may be set in a vague era, or it could be in a very long lost era, which we definitely want to rekindle it up again with our story. And it could be the middle ages as well, and specific periods from the past can be the focal point for our story. So that's why it is called the period drama, sometimes also mentioned as costume drama and period piece, right? So that's the name of the genre that we are looking out for today. Sukleen Obroy, hi there, thanks for joining the live. And yes, it's going to be really interesting to understand how we can be writing a story in this particular category of literary fiction, which is called period drama. And I'm going to give you a lot of tips, a lot of elements that you need to think about while you're writing this kind of a story. And we'll also be talking about how we can pep up our story with different methods, right? So yes, do stay tuned in with me here in today's episode, and let's learn how we can be writing a story all by ourselves, which has got to do with the ancient past, right? Now, let's move ahead. After that introduction to the subgenre of the day, we have our first segment, which is the essentials, that is the prerequisites, all the quintessential elements that we really need to think of while we are going to start writing a period drama. Yes. So for today, again, I have three essential elements here, which I am going to bring out in today's episode. All of the three elements right there on my screen. The first one is the theme, then we have the characters, and also the setting, right? So let's delve deeper into each one of them one by one and understand in greater detail how we can be incorporating all of these elements into our story, right? Now, the first element that we would want to focus on would be the theme. So let me tell you, for a period drama, most themes transcend history, and yet themes still will be interpreted within the context of the novel's time period. Yes, so whatever time period you're choosing to write for your book, it's going to be interpreted within the realms of that time period. And if I want to give you a list of potential themes that you can be following, then there are a wide array of themes that you can be choosing for your story. It could be about ambition, it could be about madness, loyalty, deception, revenge, probably all, or maybe there could be a love angle as well. There could be temptation and guilt and power struggle. There could be a talk about destiny and fate. So it could also be about camaraderie and friendship and bond between friends. There could be a tragic incident, death, or a loss. So as you can notice here, there is a wide array that we have for our viewers for today, and a theme would be totally dependent on you as a creative writer. What is it that you want to choose for your story? But by and large, this the theme that you're going to choose for your story, that's also again going to determine, this theme will run parallelly along with the time period that you're choosing for your story, right? So two different aspects here, and the theme can be anything from all of these examples that we have given you, and you can also choose to have a combination and a mix maybe of one or two themes, right? So think about a story and have a theme of maybe patriotism or heroism, coming of age, maybe a tragic story, or maybe a love interest that you have in your story, right? But along with that theme there, try and put your story or place it into some kind of a ancient time period, and talk about how this ancient time period can be then applied into your story, with the costume, with the dialogues, with the way the people lived and behaved in those times, right? So that's how you start creating a period drama, right? So this is the first essential here. Do give me a thumbs up in the chat box if you understand where this is going, right? And I would really love to know from my audience here whether you have a clear understanding of what a period drama is all about, right? And let me also now move ahead to the second character, or the second element that we have in our essentials. The second element is about the characters, right? So now again, your characters could be real characters, they could be imagined characters. That means they are all fictional, but they need to behave keeping in mind the era that you have chosen for your story, right? So how people inhabited in that particular era is something which is of prime importance here. And even if you push the boundaries, you need to discover the norms, attitudes, beliefs, the expectations of that particular time and station in life. And if I come to think about it, if you're going to talk about a Roman slave, then that's the era that you're going to talk about is really ancient, and you need to think of how people inhabited during those times, right? Now, your mission as a creative writer is to reveal the people of the past with your story, right? And coming to think about it now, as an example, I can also mention one of the classic stories written by Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. And this story here was also, although a classic story, it can most definitely be categorized into a period drama, because this particular story, it had love and emotional aspects as the theme that was the central plot for our story. But the story itself was set in England in the late 18th century, right? So that's why, because of the time frame or the setting of that story, you can, if you have even seen that movie there, this particular movie which was adapted from this book, you can clearly observe the attires that people wore. All of that was clearly, evidently, depicted the ancient past, right? And to be specific, 18th century England, right? So Pride and Prejudice, it follows the turbulent relationship between Elizabeth Bennet, the daughter of a country gentleman, and William Darcy, who was a rich aristocratic landowner. And what happened all throughout the story, how was their relationship, and finally, did they get hitched up or not? All of this was the plot of the story. So if you come to think about it, the theme was about love and relationships, but the time period that we had was 18th century England. That could categorize this particular story into a period drama. Yes. So think about a story. It could have any of those themes that we mentioned earlier, but then try weaving it into a different time zone, um, which is from the past, and that's how you create a period drama, right? So now we have the second essential here, which was the characters. And I can see that I have a lot of thumbs ups there in the chat box. Yes, comments coming up there. So yes, that's great, lovely. So this is another newer genre that we have come up in our episode, and you can be thinking about so many stories that have been written about period dramas. There are a lot of stories about emperors and kings and monarchs, right, which also date back to the ancient past, and these also can be categorized into a period drama, right? Now, after the characters here, the third element that we have, let me take you through the third element, which is another essential element, which is the setting. Yes, so setting always involves the sense of place and the time frame that we are going to talk about, and this is really imperative for our period drama. Even more critically, you need to transport your readers into the past in the first few chapters itself. That means just as you start writing, your readers need to get transported into that world, and for that you need to plan out, research properly what all that particular era entailed, and give intricate details into your description for your readers to get transported into that story world. Yes, now straight away you are in the past when you start your story, and of course many more details of the setting are revealed throughout the story. It could be in the form of the attires that the characters are wearing, what are the costumes. It could be about the food, the furniture, the culture, the landscape, what was the architecture that was prevalent in those times, and anything that you can think of which gives you a description of that era gone by will form a part of the setting. Yes, so all of these aspects get connected together to form the setting of your story, and the tone for your story needs to follow the path of the era that you have chosen for your book. Yes, so the setting again is of prime importance here. With that, we have all of our three essentials. First one was the theme. What is it that we are going to write about? Is it love and relationships, or is it about war and distress and death, or whatever is the theme that you're going to choose? That is one of the essential elements. And then after that, we have to think about our characters and also the setting of the place, which needs to be intricately designed. Yes, now after all of these essentials that we spoke about, let's now move ahead to the next segment, and this is the Google It word. And the first Google It word that we have for today, okay, I think I'm missing something here. Okay, we will come to this Google It word a bit later, but for now I have an icebreaker question for you, and there it is. So the icebreaker question that comes up next is, if you could turn back time, then what is the mistake that you would want to correct? That's the question that we have here. Do write to me in the chat box. If you could turn back time, then what mistake would you correct? That's the question that we have here. And think about this one. Is there anything that you would want to correct, or you would want to go back to the past, maybe something that is modernized these days, and you feel that it is a bane? Maybe that could be corrected, right? So do let me know in the chat box. uh, I think if I think about this, then all the modernization, of course, it has a lot of advantages as well, but we can also count the disadvantages in our fingertips, isn't it? So I think maybe I would like to definitely go back into the past, because that life was really rich and full with relationships and with friendships, blossoming friendships, right? And these days we do not have time, and apart from looking at all of the modern technology, we do not really have time for each other, isn't it? So maybe I can go back. If I could go back to the past, then I would really not want to make some inventions that have already happened. Yes. Okay. And the war that has happened Varun will want to go back in time and see to it that the war doesn't take place. Okay, that's good. Love and peace everywhere, right? Great. Okay. And there are question marks come up there. So you just need to think that what is it that you would correct if you could go back in the past. Okay. So I'm going to give you time to think about your answers here. And let me have some amusing answers here in the chat box. And let's move ahead now to the next segment. And the next segment that we have here is expert tips on establishing the essentials, right? So we saw what the essential elements are. And now let me give you some expert tips here. So, first and foremost, if you are really interested in writing historical fiction, because most usually we see period dramas are also about the past time, the history of the past, right? So if you are interested in writing a historical fiction and you're clueless as to where you need to start, then maybe you can spend some time free writing in your notebook. And that is one expert tip here. You can write about a time period or a historical event that you get interested in, which captivates your attention. And note that any assumptions that you have about the period or maybe the cultural depictions of it, this could be moments in history that are speculative in nature. You can always research all of them up and try writing about it. Free writing is one style where you do not give a lot of focus to the ifs and the buts, and you start simply start writing, and with the flow of the words, then after that maybe you can check out and research even thoroughly about the topic that you have written. Yes, so that is the first expert tip here. Try free writing of about all the historical events that captivate your interest, and then probably research is the key. Do go ahead and research thoroughly about that time period. Yes, so that was one expert tip here. And of course, these days we have a lot of information that we can garner from the internet, from the world wide web. So one of those expert tips is that you can go ahead and check for that particular time period. You can understand in greater detail as to how people lived during those times. Yes, and even if you're writing about true events, you can take some sort of a creative liberty and introduce fictional characters to complement those events that are based on actual incidents. And maybe you can inject your own unique personality into the story and keep it entertaining. Yes, so that is again tip number 2, that you can take creative liberties even if you are getting an inspiration from a real life historical event. You can of course have some fictional characters introduced into the story and take creative freedom there, and give the story your own unique personality. Right now, after that second expert tip, the third tip that we have here is that in addition to getting all of those historical facts correct for your story, the intricate nuances of that time period are also going to be important. Yes, so in no scenario you want to give your audiences the moment to question what you have written in your story, right? So take stock of all the details that you have put in your work, and research it thoroughly. See to it that no matter what you end up writing, of course, something or some sort of an event, a detail that you have put up, or particularly maybe characters that you have shown in your story, anything to do with your story, something or the other will always be pinpointed. But still, you have to see to it that your story needs to be accurate, in the sense that critics really have less to crow about, right? So that's the third expert tip there. Of course, there can be some inaccuracies, but see to it that it is not really far from the realm of how people lived in those time periods. Yes, so research all of your topics thoroughly, and also look out for the intricate details that you have put out in your work. Right now, after all of these three expert tips that we have seen for our essentials while writing a period drama, let's move ahead into our synonym here. The first synonym, or sorry, the Google it word. It's not the synonym segment for today, it is the Google it segment. And the word that we have for our first Google it segment is crow about. So what is the meaning of this phrase, crow about? It is actually an idiom, and what we understand from this particular idiom is to brag, or maybe to boast about something, right? Maybe also it can sometimes be used to say, to complain about something, right? So no one likes it when you go crowing about your business. Yes, so that means that no one likes it when you go about boasting or bragging about your business. Yes, and that is the meaning of the idiom crow about, right? And this is something that you can be jotting down in your fancy Google it journal, right? And try using it wherever appropriate in your vocabulary. It's really an impressive way to say bragging or boasting, right? And so that's the first Google it idiom that we have for today, crow about. And let's move ahead into our next segment. We have another icebreaker question, and this says, if you could remove one subject from your school syllabus, then what would it be? That's quite easy, isn't it? Think about what is that one subject that you do not want to study, and write it to me in the chat box here. Great. Okay, let me see what answers I get there. Maths is the first one that I get here. Math is it terrifying? Is it that terrifying? I think you need to love your numbers, and probably then it wouldn't be that this you wouldn't have that much of a disinterest with it, isn't it? So math is the first one that I get there. And I also have physics come up there. Okay, science, right? Lovely. Remove one subject from your school. Okay, so the next one that I have is GK. So that is general knowledge. But that's really important, isn't it? We need to learn about the current affairs, about our past leaders, isn't it? Okay, so we have math come up there again. And what else? Arts. Okay, so arts, if you have that as a subject in your school, then I think Prachi definitely doesn't want to read that one. Okay, so thanks again for all of your answers there. And we get math, arts, physics, and yes, math is the one that comes up there a lot, right? Okay, so with that, let me now take you to another fun segment in today's episode. And this is the movie title trivia, right? So I'm going to show you two pictures here, and you need to guess these period drama movie titles. That is the first one that I am having right there on the screen. What do you think is this movie all about? Give me the name of that movie in the chat box. It is, I can categorize that into adventure comedy as well. Um, Interesting movie there. Let me give you the answer for that one. It is The Crudes, right? And now let's move ahead into the next picture that we have. Here it is. That's an interesting depiction, isn't it? Do let me know if you have an inkling of the name of the movie. Okay, so I'm going to reveal the answer. I can see question marks come up there. Um, Thanks for that comment there, Varun. And here is the name of the movie, In the Heart of the Sea. That's the name of this movie there. And with that, we had only two pictures for you all in the movie title trivia today. So let's get going into our next segment. And this segment is about plotting the plot. Yes. So now we know some of the elements that we want to focus on while we write a period drama. And now, once we have started writing a period drama, how are we going to maintain the interest level towards our story for our audiences? Yes, how are we going to captivate them? So to give them an engaging and an interesting read, what are the elements that you would want to focus on, what are the elements that you would want to include into your story, is something that plotting the plot makes you aware of, right? So here are the three elements again that we have. The first one is all about the conflict, so one kind of a problem statement that the story has. And if we think about it, then all of the stories that we have read or watched, all of them have one or the other problem that is wanting to get resolved by the end of it, right? So that's the motive about motive for a story. There is a conflict and we need a resolution for that conflict, and how the lead characters try and overcome these challenges is something that we are all looking for to in the story, right? So that's what the conflict is all about, a clash of interest or a problem statement into our story. And then of course with a period drama, the world building is one exciting aspect that we really need to think about, because we are going to give our audiences a lot of description about how the world that we are portraying, how was it in those times, isn't it? So we need to have a lot of imagination here and give a rich world building to our audiences. And then of course we also need to talk about the character growth. Yes, so let's look at each of these segments one by one. The first one is the conflict, and let me tell you that the problems that the characters face in your story is what a conflict is. So whatever is the theme and the plot for your story, the conflict must be realistic for the chosen time. So if you're talking about a past era, then your conflict cannot be alien invasion, right? Because in those times you cannot think about all of these modernizations. Yes, so keep your conflict realistic to the time frame that you have chosen and the place that you're choosing, right? And readers will always want to have an in-depth understanding of the reason for the conflict that you present. A slave raising his voice about the indifference and the torture that he faces, and the torture that he is condemned to in 15th century, can be one kind of a potential conflict that you go ahead with for your story, right? Now, that is one of the elements in plotting the plot and to make it engaging. Now, the second element that we have here is the world building. So, you need to build a world for your readers. There are a set of rules that were followed during that period that you have chosen for your story, and the customs, probably the beliefs, the religious aspects as well, or maybe the social arrangements, everything could have been different in those times, right? Think about the family environment. How was the government, or how were people led at that particular time? What the talk about international alliances, military actions, maybe the physical geography of a place, the layout of the town and the city, or even politics of that time would be so different from what your readers know about in the current scenario. Yes, so you need to have all of those intricate details neatly woven into your story in a way that your audiences get to easily comprehend the story, its plot, the various traditions and the beliefs that you're writing into your story, right? And that is what is the world building. Yes. So, in simpler terms, the world building needs to be in depth and rich, and it needs to talk about all the various aspects that we have dealt with in this particular plot building pointer, right? Now, after the world building, another element that we would want for our story would be the character growth. So our characters in the story, the ones that you have introduced, the lead pairs, the side characters, and more especially the lead pair, they need to have a character development going throughout the story, which is quite evident for our audiences. Yes, make them evolve and grow over the course of the story with the various experiences that they are getting. And if they don't, they will come across as too rigid and predictable, right? And one way to show growth is to have them resolve their internal conflicts by the end, come to a strong resolution by the end of the story. Alternatively, they could conquer a fear or some sort of an some sort of a weakness that they had, overcome that by the end of the story. And that is again another way in which you can be showcasing the character evolvement into your story, right? So the fear that they had, or probably whatever is holding your characters back, when they overcome this challenge, then that is again another way of showcasing the character development in our story, right? So have your characters evolve and grow throughout the story with the varying experiences that they garner. Yes, so these are the plot building pointers to keep it engaging. One was all about the world building, and then we also had raging conflict going in our story, and of course we're also going to show character development in our story, right? So all of these plot building pointers are going to keep your story captivating for your audiences. And with that, now I'm going to move ahead into the next Google it word. And the word that we have next is predictable, right? So when something is predictable, it means that you can always understand beforehand what is going to happen, right? So that's the meaning of predictable, means something that can be expected. Yes, and also something that is already known or seen in advance, right? So that's the word predictable. Do go ahead and check that word in Google, or more traditionally in a dictionary, and do jot that word in your Google it journal, so that you can be using it and so that you can remember it. And also, let me tell you that all of these words are going to form uh, a word repository, or like a ready reckoner, and you can keep checking and revising all of these words every now and then, so that you have them in your memory, right? So this is the second word in our Google it segment, which is predictable, which means something that is expected or which can be known beforehand, right? Now, next we have expert tips again in plotting the plot. And the first expert tip that I bring to you is that the stakes that you have in your story of success or failure are actually the consequences. Yes, they are why it matters whether or not your protagonist achieves their goal or not. So ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen if your protagonist fails, and what is the best that could happen if they succeed? Yes, now this difference between the best and the worst outcome is what makes your story matter. So it gives your story the stakes. And always see to it that the stakes are high for your story. Only then it is going to create a wonderful impact with your audiences, right? And that is again something that you would want to determine for your story as a creative writer. Would you want your characters to succeed, or to attempt and even then fail towards the end of your story, right? This is one of those expert tips where you need to think about the stakes that you have drawn towards your story. And then the second expert tip is that what are your aims and motivations, or not your aims and motivations per se, but your aims and motivations for the character that you're introducing into the story, right? So your characters should have certain motives that propel them forward, and they are wanting to achieve something towards the end of the story, right? They are wanting to accomplish a particular idea or a particular goal. And without aims, your character will come across as directionless, and without motivation, the aim will be felt as though very superficial and contrived, and the two should always go hand in hand. So there are different aims and motivations that you can be showing for your character. And this in fact is also going to draw your readers towards the story, because they also are going to be curious enough to understand whether these motivations are met in the end or not, right? So these are again expert tips for plotting the plot. things that you can be incorporating into your story, which will make it more and more interesting, right? Now, after this, I'm going to move ahead into the next Google it word. And the word that we have is superficial, right? So, superficial would mean something which exists or occurs only onto the surface, and something which appears to be true, but when you examine it intricately, then that's not the case, right? So a close examination may reveal something else, but on the surface, it seems true and it seems existent, and that's what is called superficial. Yes. So when your character does not have aims and motivations, they might come across as superficial, so they do not have much depth, right? Now, with that word there, I get a thumbs up here in the chat box. Uh, Meena gives me the word, the Google it meaning of the word. And thanks a lot for that, taking time out to write out the meaning. And that is really correct. Superficial, that's right. It is existing or occurring on the surface. Great. Now, you can also look out for how you can be using these words in sentences. Yes, so that you get a better idea. And with that Google it word, now let's move ahead into our recommendation of the day. And this is a movie for today, which is uh, Robin Hood. Yes, you can see the picture on the screen. Robin Hood, the recommendation of the day, which is a movie, right? And we move ahead to the fun part, which is the next segment, locate the words. And here I'm going to show you a letter maze. And in this letter maze are some words which are hidden. This could be written, these words could be written horizontally, vertically, or even diagonally. Do look out for these words. The clue is that all of these words are from today's episode, so you might have heard these words from me. And quickly in the chat box, let me know what are the words that you can find, right? I have I can be giving you three words for today's segment here. This is the letter maze that you can see on my screen, and try giving me a meaningful word for today's episode. So, an eagle's vision is what you want to have for uh, giving me the words in the chat box here. And the time is also ticking, so you need to be really quick. Um, I get the first word, which is story. I can give that to you, Richa. Thanks a lot for that. Okay, and what else do we get here? Story comes up there again. That is correct. Ancient is one of those words. Let me see if that is the word that we have here. Okay, the first word that we have is kingdom, and the next here is ancient. And I can actually give you one more. Story could be fine, but with story, if you add hi, then there is history. Just beside ancient, look out for it vertically, and you get history, right? Um, So those were the words history, ancient, and kingdom. So yes, great. Thanks a lot for all of those answers there. History was one word that I cannot see here in the chat box. And yes, with that, we come to the end of our episode. So yes, quickly let me give you a roundup of all the learnings that we have had in our segment, which is called At a Glance. And the essential elements that we saw for today's episode, where we are exploring how we can be writing a period drama. The prerequisites are thinking about the theme that is a central plot for your story, and then talk about the setting. That means which is the time period that you're going to choose for the story of yours. And of course, depending on the time period, the place, and the whole scenario is going to change, right? There are a lot of elements that we need to focus on while we choose the setting of our story. Yes, the costumes, the dialogues, the language, the sense of place, the politics of those times. All of that is going to gain precedence while we write a period drama. Yes. And apart from the theme and the settings, we also have to look out for our characters. And in the plot building pointers, we definitely want to we definitely want to give a lot of depth to our characters. That means that we want to showcase their evolvement and their how they are gaining a lot from their experiences throughout the happenings of our story. That is something that the a progression that we would want to showcase to our readers. Yes. And of course, in our story we have some kind of a problem statement, a challenge that we try to resolve towards the end. And there is a lot of world building that we need to do. World building, of course, is one of those crucial elements that we need to invest time on while we are writing a period drama. Yes. Think about all of those intricately planned details that you can be incorporating into your story to give that vibe and to give that sense of place and time to your audiences, right? So these are the plot building pointers. And now I would urge all of my viewers to be doing this small project where you can implement all of the learnings and try writing a period drama story all by yourself. Yes. Now, take it from me, it's going to be really exciting to research about all of these crucial elements here, to research about the timeline that you're going to talk about in your story, and then incorporate that we and weave that into a story format. Yes. So that is the project work. And with that, we come to the end of today's episode. I am Sapna Mahadevan signing out for today, and I would also like to remind you that tomorrow we would be coming up with a special Saturday special episode, which is called Breakdown of a Classic. So, tomorrow again, I will be coming live at 6 p.m. India time. And do join the live tomorrow for our Saturday special episode where we bring a classic story and we try to break it down into different segments like the title, the author, how we can be writing a story just like the one that we talk about tomorrow. And of course, the fun part would be that I also recite the story out to you. Yes. So, a lot of exciting things for tomorrow's episode. So, do join the live tomorrow as well at 6 p.m. India time. I am Sapna Mahadevan signing out for today. Bye bye. Take good care of yourself.